your standards are too harsh. Or maybe your standards are just too soft. This was a conversation I had the other day about the standards that I keep for myself. And I will be the first one to raise my hand and recognize that I am a perfectionist. I have really, really high standards for myself and what I expect and what I should be able to deliver. This is true, and I think it comes from, like most things in life, we go back to our childhood. It comes from a childhood of never feeling good enough, never feeling worthy, this need to prove myself. And I've spent years working on this, and now gotten to the point where I still have really high standards, but I have more empathy for myself and understanding around those choices. But it doesn't mean my standards lower. I don't lower the standards to, the common denominator. I keep my standards high of what I expect from myself, but I have empathy and understanding around myself as being human, as being mortal, as not being the Superman that I deep down truly want to be. And it's okay to fuck up. It's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay to wallow in them, to let them fester, to let it continue. It's the same as 1 day missed is a mistake, 2 days missed is the start of a new habit. Those things apply to discipline and standards and these kinds of things, because what you've got to keep in mind is you don't get out of life what you want. You get out of life what you tolerate. So if your standards are fucking sky high and you're working so hard and you're giving everything you have to it, well, even if you don't meet the standards all the time, based on what you tolerate, you're going to get more out of life. Whereas your standards are really soft and low and you continue to pick at those points, well, shit. No wonder you keep failing. No wonder you keep lowering your standards, because you're not willing to hold yourself accountable to the work that is required. I was having this discussion with a mate the other day when we played basketball together. And we are continuously baffled by how out of shape, especially the younger guys are. We're 35. We're not old by any stretch of the imagination, but we were playing against 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And we remember what it was like when we were that age, and how we used to run rings around everyone we'd play, purely just on age and fitness. Like, we used to play in the men's comp, and we would just run circles around them. Not necessarily because we were better, but because we were fitter, we were younger, we had youth on our side, and we would just recover better. And now, to this day, we're still running rings around a lot of the kids, because there's a gap there, and the standard that they set. And we're having conversations with some of them, and they're like, oh yeah, like, it is what it is. Like, I'm like, no, like, I still have days where, I get outrun, where someone out-efforts me, or outpaces me, and it fucking irritates me. And that's a drive to do more. It's a drive to push harder. It's a drive to be better. Because I don't want to tolerate that. I have this standard of who I am. My skill level is not the same as when I was playing high-level basketball, like who I used to be. Nor is it ever going to be. I spent my whole, every day playing multiple hours. I was, in a collegiate setting. We'd have practice, and we'd have trainings, and we'd have workouts, and all this kind of stuff. My whole life revolved around them. Not to mention I was, at that time, 67 kilos compared to my, I think at last weigh in 102. That standard is going to be different. But the standard I can still keep, the standard I can still maintain, and that I hold for myself now is effort and fitness. My skills aren't going to be there. My shot isn't the same. Those kinds of things. I have to adjust those standards because I'm not going to give that time to it. I don't have time to spend hours daily shooting, practicing, working on my game. It's not a priority for me anymore. But the things I can still give time to, and do give time to, and still set as a standard is, as I said, fitness and aerobic capacity. That effort, those things that are just up here, that gut, that engine, the ability to work. That shit matters. That's the stuff I measure. That's the standards that I keep. But so many people have softer standards. They keep lowering these standards so that the work adjusts to their lowered standards, not raise the work to the standards that they should keep. And I think this is part of the problem. Like I've discussed before, guys on my basketball team are like, hey, let's work out together. Like, let's set it up. We'll do these kinds of things. I offered a basketball training program to the entirety of the league. And I was like, sweet, let's do 4 times a week. And the response was, hey, we're not as disciplined as you. And I was like, I'm aware. That's why I said 4 times a week. Like, or maybe let's do 3. 3 is a standardized thing. And they were like, oh, we were thinking like 1 a week, maybe 1 a fortnight kind of thing. And that was that wake-up call, that realization of here's the separation. Here is the differential. Here is where people's standards are and where my standards are. Yes, I get that my standards are sky fucking high. As I said, I expect huge things from myself. I expect the ability to show up, deliver, to do work based on, most of the time, purely on the things that are within my control. I don't set standards on things that are beyond my capacity. I don't set standards based on muscle mass or fat loss, like fat ratio or things like that. They are within my control, but you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. What I can control, because they are outcome-based goals, what I can control are action-based goals. I can control my effort. I can control my dedication. I can control my consistency. These things I have daily control and measurable control over. So those are the things I focus on. And by nature, the outcome comes. By nature of focusing on those things that I have the capacity to, that I can hold the standard so high on, I get the other things down the track. And I think this is where people miss a lot of it. They miss the gap in what is possible if you're willing to commit to it. What is possible if you're willing to go all in on it, to focus on raising your standards. I spoke the other day of the simplest way to raise your standards, to change your ability to be a man of your word, and to be focused on zero choice mentality rather than perception-based mentality, is to get up at the same time every day. It's really fucking simple. Is how many people sleep in on the weekend? How many people sleep in when they don't have to get up for work? I know I have. Fucking love it, especially when I've had kids. We taught our kids to play quietly in the morning. Oh, and there was a period of time where I was like, this is blissful. Whoo! Because I get up early for work. As I said, I often get up at 5 a.m. for things. So to sleep into 7 a.m., I was like, oh my God, what is this? Luxury. But it shifts and changes how I show up. So I have this constant up and down spectrum of things. Yeah, it's also going to mess with my sleep patterns. Yeah, it's going to mess with how I recover and all these kinds of things. And yes, there are going to be times where you will go to bed late or you make poor life choices, whether it's junk food, whether it's alcohol, these kinds of things. I still participate in those things. I'm not going to lie, I do. I love them. They're a rarity. They're the special occasions. They're those things that add to the moment. But I still have to get up the next day at 5 a.m., which also then changes how I make those decisions, because I hold a standard for myself. I hold a standard that I work out every single day, that I get up at 5 a.m. every single day, that I have these things that I tick off every single day. And that's more about me up here, more about that mental game, about how I'm showing up as a man, as a father, as the dedication to my life than anything else. In those areas that truly matter. Those areas that is going to create separation and differential. It comes back to that concept. I had a snowflake comment on my video the other day that rest days are required for mental health. And the guy had completely missed what I was talking about, because he was like, Your business will always be there. You can just take days off. And I was like, well, I was talking about habit creation, but sure. But the problem is that most people seek instantly for the relief. Most people are searching instantly for the rest, for the day off, for time away from the thing. And this is the problem I think it's in fitness, I think it's in business, I think it's in finance, I think it's in anything that they do, that they're building in their reward before they've earned the right to it. It's one of those ones that deeply upsets people, that you haven't earned the fucking right to a cheat day. You haven't earned the right to eat out, to have those things. And they're like, well, it shouldn't be classified as that. And I was like, no, it shouldn't. We should all have a healthy relationship around food. We should, but nobody fucking does, because we abuse the shit out of it. You know, food is the most abused substance on the planet, and exercise is the most underutilized remedy. You have the capacity to do these things. You have the capacity to utilize them for more. But people want to put the horse before the cart. No, the cart before the horse, sorry. They want to lock in their reward for what? Doing what should be normal for a week? Sometimes less. You know, if you get truly into demanding greatness, if you get into the serious level stuff, it's 126 days before you get a reprieve. It's 126 days of perfection. Why? Because we're instilling that is normal, that is the baseline before we then add in things, before we add in the exceptions to the rule. So you want to build in the exceptions before you've established the rule. And it's why people fail. It's why I have problems with it if it fits your macros and these kinds of things. Yes, it does work, but most people don't have the longevity and consistency up here to actually follow it through. I know short term that this version is so much harsher, but it's because you need to change who you fundamentally are. You need to change your paradigm and how you view the world. Because until you do that, we're going to keep repeating the same cycles over and over and over again. That's why we're stuck in this quagmire of going round and round and round. Because you can't change how you view the world. You can't change that you need a cheat day, that you need to go out for beers with the boys, that you need to sit back and slam a whiskey or three, that you need to have that pizza and ice cream. That was my go-to. Fucking Ben & Jerry's strawberry cheesecake, double pepperoni, extra large with garlic aioli. Whew, love that shit. And a couple of glasses of whiskey, that was my go-to. And it got to the point where I was doing that every weekend, plus some. And that's how I let myself get out of control. That's how I lost the connection and the focus. So I had to re-earn the trust with myself that I was capable of that. And that's part of why the standards are so high. Because I know what it's like to lose track of who you are, to lose track of doing the work correctly. That it just creeps in and you lose sight of who you need to be internally and the standards that you set for yourself. You lose track of that shit and then it all slips away. But it doesn't happen in one quick moment. It happens inch by inch by inch by inch, because you let those standards slip. Oh, it's only one day. It's only one meal. It's only one glass of wine. It's only one workout. It's only, until it's not only. Until it's not just one thing. Until it's everything. Until you've completely lost sight of who you were supposed to be. Until you've lost sight of everything that you were meant to do. That's why the standards matter. That's why you must set them sky fucking high. Because you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life what you're willing to tolerate. And the problem is that you're continuing to tolerate who you currently are. The habits, the thoughts, the subconscious programming that you have, the actions, you are willing to tolerate them. And you can't lie and tell me that you aren't, because your life is a reflection of the things that you are willing to tolerate. So if you aren't happy with it, if you don't like where you are, You have to change the things you're willing to tolerate. Only then will you see the grandiose picture change, where you'll see everything come into fruition. It's not fucking easy, but it's damn well simple. Raise your standards, change what you'll tolerate, and you'll watch every aspect of your life change. This is what demanding greatness is about. It's why it's harsh as shit. It's why most people aren't built for it. It's why most people cannot handle it. But those who are, who take it day by day by day and accept that they will become a different man along the way, will see incredible change. But only you can make this decision. Only you can decide what it's really worth to you. So the question is, what is it really worth to you? Are you ready to demand greatness? Are you ready to step up? Or do you want to continue with your soft standards and what you're currently tolerating? Only you can decide.